Clan's Tales. Music by Casket Bound.
Hello and welcome to the show. Tonight, myself and my lovely co-host, Rachel, will be talking about dead internet theory, which is a fascinating, appropriately enough, internet conspiracy theory. So, Rachel, why don't you give us the lowdown on what the dead internet theory is?
So dead internet theory is basically like the internet died and everything online is bots. And some people take it very seriously. Other people are more ironic about it. And then other people are in between. I think it's pretty true. I mean, it's at least true enough to be more than a joke.
So what do they mean, though? Do they mean that the internet just died and we're all hallucinating it ever since? What's the driving force behind the theory?
From the Daily Free Press, October 21st, 2021. The internet is dead, according to the internet. It's a contradictory statement, I know. How could an entity that is alive claim that it is deceased? A growing number of online communities believe the internet died between 2016 and 2017 and has been taken over by bots that are spreading seemingly lifeless content that big tech and the government created and attempts to manipulate culture. So basically, as more and more bots got online, more and more content was manipulated, and the genuine content on the internet is now completely obscured by bots.
Yeah. So that would be, I think, the most reasonable interpretation. So the idea that the internet is dead, I mean, it's both true and not true at the same time. Certainly the internet that we used to know, you know, sort of post BBS, but pre social media, I think that internet is almost entirely gone. Certainly that internet is dead. And there is a lot of fake content up there. But at the same time, you know, the internet is still obviously there, you know? People may have, I mean, like say in the article, it's contradictory. This is a theory that has sprung up on the internet. So
it's funny that it's an internet theory made on the internet about the internet being dead. Yeah. I mean, the irony is definitely intentional. But, you know, the idea of the internet kind of operating as like a Weekend at Bernie's protagonist actually makes more sense than one would initially want to believe when you see the way that things have been going, the way that algorithms have kind of led this new push for people to be more and more generic and to remix each other and to quote celebrities. And I mean, can you really call that a lie? Isn't it sort of past the point of no return?
Yeah. I mean, when we were doing show prep, I kept talking about it being a zombie internet theory. But that was, I just realized what I was thinking of when I was saying that. I was thinking there's this idea that The Simpsons isn't The Simpsons anymore. It's Zombie Simpsons, right? Because the stories and so on aren't as good anymore. And it's just like this shambling corpse, you know, it only keeps going by inertia, really. And that's kind of similar to what we have with the internet, I think, you know?
Yeah. I mean, according to The Atlantic, and there have been several articles on this, and Cyclops had a really good tweet storm about this too. And there's definitely a consensus that artificial intelligence has become a lot more popular, and that because of that, you don't really know what people are saying outside of a, I guess, like curated. Let me just quote The Atlantic. Let me explain. Dead internet theory suggests that the internet has been almost entirely taken over by artificial intelligence. Like lots of other online conspiracy theories, the audience for this one is growing because of discussion led by a mix of true believers, sarcastic trolls, and idly curious lovers of chit chat.
Yeah. My dad used to work in like early internet communications and satellite TV and networks and terminals and things like that. He just absolutely refuses to call it artificial intelligence. He calls it artificial idiots.
Dumbasses and bots.
Yeah.
Well, it's the people trying to be more like robots and robots trying to be more like people. I mean, if you go back to like just game theory or basic bitch ass capitalism, like the winners are always going to be imitated, even if what the winners are doing is stupid and unentertaining and mindless. If they're winning, they're going to be imitated. And when you bring AI into the picture, you have a recurring imitation.
Yeah, because whatever success happens feeds the algorithm. But then there are other priorities besides success also feeding the algorithm, censoring people. You can't get an unedited feed on your social media at all. You can't just get straightforward, timeline in order of what people said and when. It's all curated. It's all got advertising slipped into it. Like Twitter, literally today, I think, just rolled out a new update where they've buried getting your straightforward timeline beneath another layer of bullshit. So yeah, everything is interfered with by these bots.
I'm so glad I left Twitter, honestly. I don't know how people can sustain that much artificial stupidity.
Yeah, I don't like sport, but arguing with people is my sport. So Twitter's great for that.
Fair enough. I mean, so we can go back to like Baudrillard, Simulacra and Simulation, and that was a book that he wrote about everything kind of being fake, sort of microcosm of what reality really was, and that was what the Matrix was based on. The film, the original Matrix, was based on this book by Baudrillard, who was really commenting on like modern society and the way that people operated and how on a long enough timeline, it all kind of becomes a copy of itself, a replicant, a fake version of the initial article. Yeah.
Or the idea of society as spectacle.
Society of the spectacle.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I've got a word. I love those surrealist, existentialist, weirdo philosophers.
Because I think that's a lot of it as well. Everyone is looking for their dopamine hit from their thumbs up, or to make it, to be able to make a living by essentially doing nothing.
The internet isn't dead. You've just killed it.
Yeah, but for me, for the internet to be dead, you would have to have an overwhelming critical mass of content being produced by bots.
We do. It's called Web3. We are there. You are here. The internet has died. All we have now is tokenization.
But I mean,
happening now.
Places like BuzzFeed and so on, they used to have like the live board of what articles were doing well, and they would have things like headline mashers and so on, and listicle generators, that it's all based on algorithms. But there's still a human at the end of it writing something.
Maybe. I mean, I've seen like advertisements for content generators where the bot will just write an entire essay for you, and a lot of content producers use that now for their work. So
yeah, and there's that artist friend of yours who does like whole books using weird algorithms to produce nonsense, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of like experimental art in its own right. Yeah. It's very.
Or is he a bot?
He could be.
He could be.
He wants you to question that. Kenji Saratori, I think you're talking about the Japanese cyberpunk author, who's also a noise musician. Yeah, I mean, that's some pretty groundbreaking, just out there performance art. I think what's interesting is that a lot of these musicians that were in these underground scenes kind of predicted what was going to happen, in this dystopian internet. Like we were there burly and we kind of foresaw it, but it was a part of this art world. Now it's not in our world, it's not an episode of Black Mirror. It's just, robots and humans being dumb together.
Yeah, it's just a regular Sunday evening.
Just another day.
One aspect of this, sort of philosophically speaking, I know it's a word that people get wrong a lot, but do you remember the Socal Hoax, which people have tried to replicate, where he just generated a nonsense postmodernist paper?
Yeah, Socal Squared, yeah.
Yeah, but the original Socal, they also fairly soon after that, really, you can find several generators online that will produce postmodernist academic papers, just essentially randomly. And but you can't tell the difference between them and a real postmodernist academic paper, which is the point.
Well, I mean, sometimes the replica works better, than the original one. This is what Owen Cyclops was talking about in his tweet. It was a site that he was a member of called Imgur. I think that's how you pronounce it. And people, they would leave comments that were just like 4chan memes, like I'd hit it, or just that feeling when, right? And so the administrators of the site, they found the most popular phrases that their users would put as comments.
Yeah.
And on April Fool's Day, they automatically posted these comments to all the pictures. And the users could not tell the difference. And they were randomly chosen for random pictures that had no connection. And there was no distinction. It was like, if anything, the algorithms were doing better, than the original content producers, because it's like, oh yeah, there's that meme again. Like,
yeah. It's interesting though, because we've kind of had, a natural experiment over the last few weeks that has popped up. It's kind of stereotypical to blame everything on Russian trolls and bot farms and so on. But since Russia invaded Ukraine, either the digital gates have slammed down on Russian trolls, or their entire efforts are going towards Ukraine. But certainly a lot of people seem to have commented that the internet seems a lot nicer. All of a sudden, there's a lot less trolling, a lot less far-right bullshit being sprayed all over your comment sections. Like Ben Shapiro dropped 10 ranks in popularity for his website overnight.
Wow. It's the great equalizer. So truth be known, I don't follow any of these commentators anymore. Like, I wouldn't know the difference between Ben Shapiro and a random person on the street, let alone like how many views or fans they have. I'm just completely out of touch with this whole
You're not missing anything.
Media apparatus. So I think that people shouldn't engage with it, to be honest.
Yeah. But it is interesting that we've had this natural experiment that has apparently wiped out a bunch of these bots or a bunch of these Russian trolls pretending to be people who they're not. And suddenly,
well, have they also wiped out, like innocent casualties who are just using the wrong words?
Probably.
Like, how do you know when you're like not becoming the McCarthyist, yourself, right?
Yeah, that's the trouble. And drawing that line is where the debate should be, I think.
That's a good point. I really like the way you put that. That's where the debate should be. Keyword should.
But the debate we're having is this kind of black and white, ban people or don't ban people, not about where we draw the line, where we should ban people or cut them off or not. It's just label someone persona non grata and get rid of them or don't seems to be the argument.
But at the same time, if people have a bunch of bots that they're getting to artificially inflate their posts, like, I don't think that's okay either if they're not disclosing it. And, it seems that somebody could just buy a bunch of bots and have 1 million people get into somebody that was really bad because they had the money to buy the bots.
Yeah.
You know, and you see like these completely vapid influencers on TikTok, and it's obvious that they got a shitload of money and a shitload of bots, because there's no way they would have that kind of following if they didn't. there's just no way that many people would be into something like that if they didn't have a bunch of bots. It's completely absurd.
Yeah, but it works. That's the sad thing. I mean, people have been buying followers for social media for a very long time. Possibly even as far back as MySpace days, certainly. And while the companies say they try to do things to curtail that, it happens anyway, and people find ways to get around being detected. And to be perfectly honest, the social media companies get a big boost from all these fake users anyway, because it bumps up their numbers and makes them seem more popular. You know, it's something you can sell to advertisers.
Yeah, it's definitely a pain in the ass to be a content producer and have to compete with all these robots. I would say understanding organic followings is important if you want to have a critical eye, you know, and then it's like your life becomes a Turing test. You have to determine what comments are real and what comments are not. And you can be like, oh, this person obviously has robots for commenters, but it's, you know, like you can't prove it either way unless you have that person, you know, on video camera.
Yeah.
You know, and even then it could be some kind of real life deep fake LARP, you know?
Yeah. Or just someone pretending to be someone they're not.
A random sociopath trying to get a bit from you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just another day. So that internet theory. I believe it. I'm a true believer.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take the internet is dead. You have killed it. You know, I'm going to take a Nietzschean view here. I think that too many dumb people got online and bought too many robots, and that the internet is a decaying corpse that cannot be reanimated. I'm going to go with it. Just stick to my guns.
You cannot kill what does not live. But I think that the commercialism is part of it, and the fact that everyone is hustling, I think, is a part of it. These are things that encourage this kind of behavior. And like I said,
hustling, I think only the hustlers are exposed in the limelight. You've got a bunch of people who have stepped away, that have been run off the internet, that don't want to bother with it anymore, that are just doing private things. And then you've got the whole Web3 migration. And I mean, I don't think that everybody is hustling. I think we just know about the people who are.
Yeah, they are the loudest, and they certainly buy the biggest voices online.
Man, like when you're like in your early 20s, though, everybody wants a piece of you. It's kind of the time to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're seeing that with all this, the ongoing sort of crypto speculation and blockchain. It'll fix everything. Just got to find that one thing that it fixes first.
Result of the internet becoming this corpse, the blockchain has been able to gain the traction that it has because the centralized internet is full of bots and people understand that it's not authentic.
I guess even a corpse has useful organs. Things in it.
I like that as the beginning of a book. You know, a really sinister book. It's the first sentence of it. Can you say it again? I'm kind of into it.
So even a corpse has useful organs inside it.
Say it again, baby.
You get me in trouble.
I'm so horny right now. I'm kidding.
I didn't think this was that show.
I'm not a necrophile. I just like to file.
Just like to file.
I'm not I'm a product manager, bitch. Get the fuck out. I don't have any corpses here that I'm doing sexual shit with.
Moving swiftly on. I think one of the most egregious examples of how fake the internet can be, I think, and how exploitative it can be is dating sites, because they make massive use of bots.
Oh, yeah, because the first 3 people you swipe right on are hot, and then you're more likely to swipe right on the uglies. The first 3 are bots. Those aren't real people.
First taste's free.
The first 3 are generated from, what is it, that Google website? Does this person exist? You know, you generate a random hottie. Isn't that what it is, to get you to swipe more? Isn't it to boost user engagement? You know?
Yeah, partially, and also there's a huge gender differential on signups to dating sites, and it's not surprising. I mean, that seems obvious, and it's a real problem, because if it's 90% sausage party, then the few women that you've got on there are going to be absolutely bombarded with unsolicited dick pics and everything else.
Then some of the dick pics might be generated by robots.
Well, yeah.
Robot talks.
Thisdickisnotreal.com.
Does this dick exist?
So what they do is they kind of seed the sites with a whole bunch of fake female profiles and chatbots. And so they will contact men on the site, either new guys who've joined the site or ones who've been around for a while but haven't had much contact with anyone. And that strings them along and keeps them on the site. And because typically they have to pay a subscription or a fee in order to be able to contact people directly, if you make them feel like, there are women on here and some of them are at least slightly interested in me, they're going to stick around, which is kind of ruthless and heartless.
Yeah, but, it has the vibe of like the popular girls playing a mean prank on a nerd to make him think that he's prom king.
Yeah. And then the pig blood falls from the ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, it's corporate bullying and gaslighting.
So do you think Carrie was like a depiction of that? Was it like a... So I'm thinking about that last scene, and I'm wondering if they were speaking to that type of like advertising and gaslighting. And
everyone wants to be at least accepted by the popular kids, I suppose, or at least at some point in their life. The element
of people wanting acceptance is, without a doubt, used to gaslight people on a very manipulative scale for buying followers and boosting up engagement. Like if you think more people are into something, you're more likely to be into it. If you're just like some random teenager who is worried about being rejected, and there's something you really like and you see that many people don't like it, you're less likely to talk about how you like it. There's something you don't really like, but all of your popular friends are talking about how much they like it. You're going to pretend to like it because you're young and you want to fit in, and you haven't developed your own personality. That's how all this stuff works. It's unfortunate. I wonder how much is human nature and how much is like just like bad things that humans have done.
Well, it's interesting to compare it to.
It isn't the same thing. If humans do bad things, maybe that's human nature.
Well, comparing it to adolescence and comparing it to Carrie.
It's a depiction of
adolescents. They don't have fully formed, fully functional brains. They don't have a complete sort of empathy loop working quite, and the internet makes us all a little bit sociopathic because we're interacting with all these people who aren't real because they're outside of our social circle. You can't see them, you don't interact with them personally necessarily, so they kind of automatically get dehumanized to an extent. So
objects and like figures, symbols.
The dead internet theory is basically that none of this is real, but to a lot of people, the people out there on the internet, aren't real to the same extent that people in their personal lives.
That's a good point. Yeah. If you're in like hyper, Darwinist troll mode, then every poster is just like your peon to manipulate, right? Or like some random character in a video game to kill.
Yeah. And I think, nope, I've lost my train of thought.
We're talking about like dehumanization and
yeah. So everyone's looking, the hot property is authenticity, right? And I think that's what's driven a shift to video and audio, because people think it's harder to be fake. When you can see someone, you can read their body language and so on. It takes more effort to lie in that kind of format, perhaps.
I don't know. I think most people don't like authenticity. I think they claim to, but it's performative. I think when most people see true authenticity, they do not like it.
That's what I was going to kind of circle around to, because it's not actual authenticity they want. It's fake authenticity, right? Authenticity is now just another, marketing buzzword, right? So there's that whole bit Bill Hicks used to do, talking about marketers, saying, Bill, he's doing that anti-establishment thing. That's very hot. That's very good marketing. No, shut up. Fuck off. Yeah. That's not what I'm doing. So authenticity has just become another kind of buzzword. And like you say, people don't actually react that well to you when you're being real.
So I feel like people are kind of nihilistic now, and I don't even think that we're trying to signal authenticity anymore. I think we're trying to signal irony as a culture. We're trying to signal self-awareness. We're trying to signal how much we know. Authenticity is kind of seen as cringe now. It's looked down upon. It's sort of passé in a way. like look at that true believer. That could just be my point of view, though.
It's hard to keep up sometimes because the internet cycles through fads so quickly.
This is true. Yeah. How do you keep up?
Yeah, it's impossible. Even if you're plugged in, 24 hours a day, you can't keep up.
You can kind of predict things if you're someone who's been on the internet for a while. You can kind of test a boom and bust cycle of a meme and a news story, and you can be like, all right, in a week nobody's going to be talking about this, or in 3 days people will not shut up about this, and you can kind of feel it, the vibration of the internet nexus.
Yeah. Do you think any of this has to do with the destruction of online anonymity?
I don't know, because I think a lot of anonymous accounts are just bots of some non-anonymous person trying to boost their numbers.
That's the thing. But we've gotten to a point where society is now cybernetic, even if our bodies aren't, right? There's a blend between meat space and digital space in a way I don't think even William Gibson could have predicted, and because so many people are trying to project their identity online, they're a lot more discoverable. You can find out who someone is without too much effort. Though everyone looks down on doxing, quite rightly, I think, but it's not that difficult really to find out who people are. And people are getting fired over stupid nonsense from their real world jobs, from things they said online 10 years ago,
Well, I think the newer generation, they're more robust and immune against cancel culture because they use so many anonymous accounts. I think that using our real names is not, just look at the Web3 community. They've all got pseudonyms. They've all got fake names. They're all creating characters, and they're very focused on OPSEC, after having seen their peers and their influencers get canceled, that they've become more adept to shifting identities.
Well, you and me, we've got our sort of online identities, I suppose, that are aspects of ourselves. You're trying to get away from your old name and persona a bit. How are you finding that? Is it weird?
Okay, so I was online very early, and it wasn't really something that I had to be. It was more like I was the same online as I was in person. I had this character, but it was fully me, and I was exactly the same online as I was in person, but I was a character in person, you know? I was a performance artist. I was a musician. I was a very creative, expressive person. And so all of that self-expression was authentic. What started happening was that people knew me from previous times in my life who expected me to be the same person that I was then and to have that same character. And they would see me like 5-10 years later and want me to like spit out catchphrases and kind of like put me on the spot and try to get me to say certain things to their friends. And I found it just like very icky, you know, because I wanted the freedom to change and evolve and grow. And when people expect you to be this character, you're confined in a social sense. And, you know, you have to break away from that if you really want to have freedom of expression and identity. You can't hold
get
on
locked into
to
it.
like somebody else's, you know, opinion of you and who you publicly presented as. You know, it's that stuff can really hold you back and tie you down, you know. And I had a very countercultural persona, and a lot of people didn't take me seriously for that. And you know, like when you're younger, you can do that kind of thing. There's a bigger audience because you've got a bunch of other persona countercultural weirdos around you, you know. And then people have to like grow up and get real jobs and buy houses and not die, and you know, all that hashtag adulting happens.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I think adopting a persona ended up helping me be truer to myself in a lot of ways. So it wasn't so much donning a fiction suit as stripping away all the masks and bullshit you put up to get by in life, you know, and getting down to something that was more like me.
I like that.
So I used to go to a lot of nerd conventions, and having met some of the people who worked on the games and books and comics and things that I always liked, I always found meeting them quite disappointing, right? Because the kind of guys mostly who were behind the stuff that I was into largely were like interchangeable fat middle-aged guys in cargo shorts, right?
Well, what's wrong with that? Are you like look-seeing?
Nothing's wrong with that, but as a fan, and you look at the content they produce, right? And the content they produce is all this countercultural sort of deep ideas, right? Okay,
yeah, sure.
And yet you practically could have bought them from a kit. With the odd
illusions get blown. Yeah. I mean, well, when you're young, you do a lot of projection, and you kind of expect your heroes to not be regular people.
Yeah.
Because they have a mystique about them based on the character that they create. I mean, like, I like what you said about being able to be more fully yourself. I mean, I think that's the best way to do characters.
Well, when I started producing stuff and started going to conventions to sell product or to do panels or whatever, I was very conscious that I didn't want to be the same kind of disappointment. So I started exaggerating my style and so on, and wearing different clothing, to the point where I now dress like a cheap knockoff of Rob Zombie. But that was also an excuse to be myself, because that was closer to how I used to dress. When I went to... I like the idea. Yeah.
Of being your own superhero, you know, like becoming your own avatar. There's something really important about that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So to say the exceptions to the disappointing schlub rule were people like Warren Ellis or Grant Morrison, right? And Ellis had this exaggerated persona with his cane and his hat and everything. And, well, I don't need to go into how Alan Moore presents himself.
Comic book people are so genuine. They're so loving, that they're not trying to be cool.
Some of them are, and it used to be like that.
No,
but I think,
like the comic book crowd is less subjectively trying to be cool. That's why people are nicer.
Yeah. But certainly Grant Morrison, he is a very intense guy. Or does he call himself gender neutral now? I can't keep up.
Keep up with the genders.
Yeah. Well, to be fair to him, he always used to play around with that. Like, the Lord Fanny character in The Invisibles was based partially on his experiments with cross-dressing and stuff.
Well, that was Grant Morrison, though.
Yeah, that's Grant Morrison. But Morrison going to comic book conventions and stuff, he was always dressed really sharply. Like
he was King Mob. The King Mob character was like his alter ego superhero.
Yeah, but he stood out from the crowd at these cons and so on by being the opposite to what everyone else was. He was always, sharp suit. Very neat, so tailored.
You think a lot of these people, they just all looked like they were at a board meeting dressing up as nerds? You could tell the real creators, they had like a different essence, you're saying?
Yeah. Maybe it is prejudice, but it is hard to take someone seriously as an edgy creator when they're stood there in Crocs. Maybe that's unfair, but...
Well, the question is, if you saw them, Warren and Grant, right, at the convention, and you didn't know who they were, would they have seemed like the people at a board meeting dressed up as nerds to you? Did something in your brain make you experience them as more authentic, or,
I mean, like I say, with all of them, Alan Moore as well, it's, he just decided that instead of a midlife crisis, he was going to become a wizard. And he tailored his look to that, but with them it feels more like the costume is a presentation of their true self.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
it's good.
Yeah, I mean, like a superhero costume, right? Like Morrison talks about that in Super Gods and things.
If you're famous, right, like really famous, and you're doing that as a career, that's different from if you're doing it as a side hustle, right? I think that establishing yourself as a personality, and having a brand that lasts through the changes of all the internet cycles, it's something that not everybody can do. And the people who do it and do it well are in a league of their own, And it's like with all these people now trying to be famous, right? With all these people trying to be influencers, it's a completely different world from how the online world was like even 10 years ago, where it was all OPSEC, right? It was all people hiding because they didn't want to get fired. And, like people were fake social justice-y, like even the people who were like considered far right now were like towing the line performatively, and then when the Instagram culture really peaked, about like 6-7 years ago, and like suddenly every girl with an iPhone was some fitness guru, wellness coach, like the social media world changed, the social software adapted,
Yeah, and every guy suddenly had a photo of himself in front of a big expensive car, and his profile would say, working out of Dubai and London or something. Yeah, you could, again, clones.
Douche bros. Yeah, douche bros.
Yeah.
I used to not use that word because I thought it was just a way to oppress, like, white nerd men or something, because I was living in San Francisco, right? And everybody was really smart there. And when I heard like the word tech bro, like I didn't see it because everybody there was just like a huge autistic nerd, and then I moved to Austin and I'm like, oh, that's a tech bro. And I'm like,
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it is
That's
used.
a douche, bro.
It is used to maybe not oppress, but to dismiss a lot of people. But there's also a lot of truth to it.
Right.
I think I know what the difference is. Right. So these like guys with their profiles saying that they're traders and they're based out of Dubai, or whatever. It's all fake, right? It's all nonsense. That's just
this is
designed.
The dead internet. This is the
It's projecting an inauthentic message. Whereas the personas and the costume of people like Morrison and Ellis and more, that's hyperreal.
I like that. Okay. Yeah, so the hyperreal, the more real than real, more animated, expressive version of oneself is at one end of the curve, and then the douche bros that are just being overly generic to get the most likes and hits are at the other end of the curve.
Yeah, it's pushing the button to get the treat, right?
It's Skinner.
It's like Skinner box. Yeah.
they're all pigeons, man. Not like us comic book heroes.
Not like us rock doves, which are actually the same as pigeons.
Superhero mutant ass kicker true selves.
Well, there used to be this philosophy on image boards like 4chan, right? That anonymity was the way to true authenticity because you weren't being judged on anything other than what you said and did, right? Whereas now anonymity is seen as a sign of inauthentic.
Well,
you are a bot or whatever.
Communities that have lasted seem to have a lot of anonymous names now, and I think that's definitely a big change from people just working really hard not to be noticed, like under their real names. Now you've got people actively creating these personas online that are the OPSEC itself. And I think that's why a lot of it seems phony and insincere, is because it's operation security. It's not expression or authenticity or like becoming a higher version of yourself or anything like that. It's just operation security.
I used to buy into that 4chan philosophy quite a lot, because like the dead internet theory, I think it's both true and not true at the same time.
Schrodinger's internet.
Yeah, and Schrodinger's troll. Because if you are anonymous, it does free you up to say whatever the fuck you want. But a lot of people just use that opportunity to say the N-word. Or
you don't want to say that under your real name.
Would no.
Like if you're the type of person who wants to use that word, you probably should get an anonymous account.
Unless you're a rapper.
They like go in the ghetto and post that white boy. Come have that account in the ghetto.
Yeah. But for me, it's become clear that just because you're anonymous doesn't mean you're authentic. Right?
Just because you're anonymous doesn't mean you're authentic. Truth. That is some real talk.
Yeah. And it doesn't make you wise or the things that you're saying correct or anything.
I am
either.
large anonymous sage because you cannot identify me.
When you can take the keyboard from my hand, you will be the master.
There's so many like 12-year-olds though that are just fooling around on their computer. They don't know the damage that they do. I was a young troll online, like this script kiddie, just running dots that scrolled text of skulls and dongs, and I was just some kid online. I had no idea what was happening, And then I got Zoom bombed, right? Like when I did Elixir Salon, and
I remember.
It was the same spirit. It's kind of Discordian in a way. I mean,
yeah, that's probably the healthy ways to just kind of roll with it.
The trickster archetype is here. I mean, the comic book authors did kind of predict this neo-tricksterism, and
yeah.
Here we are, a million curlies.
We all need to embrace our hyper-real selves and step into our superhero personas.
Selena 2.0. You too can be your own god. Sign up for my magic course. Oh my god, there's actually a guy who does that everybody makes fun of, and I want to say his name. But he's like,
may summon him.
God, you know. Oh man, I really don't remember his name. I just know that he sells a lot of courses about magic.
I think I did took that course. Apparently, I'm Dionysus. So.
Oh no! I thought that you were Thor.
No, Odin. I do like Odin.
Well, I mean, I consider myself a cross between Mystique and Magneto, with like Mystique's appearance, but Magneto's dialogue.
So if I had a superhero persona, what would it be? I did have one called the Recluse.
That sounds more like a tarot card.
Well, so he was a superhero with no powers, and he just bought up old supervillain equipment off eBay and used that.
That's so like 90s slacker. Fuck you.
I know. I can't help it. The Gen X comes out every now and again.
I feel more of a connection with Gen X than millennials.
Apparently, I'm somewhere between the two, actually. But people get into fights over where the demarcation is.
I'm technically a millennial, but I feel like I'm too sincere to really take that label on.
So, do we think there's a way out? Is there a way to resuscitate the dead internet?
Besides, like, Web3 tokenization of all things, a million Discord channels? Are we talking about, like, something besides that? Are you talking about a new internet that isn't tokens?
Bloody everything.
It's not going to happen.
No. How would you even build a non-commercial internet anymore?
In real life, you have to like regather tribes and form new micro groups. The only thing you can do is in real life shit at this point.
Yeah,
you can meet online and form communities with them. And
you hear that, kids? You got to get together and
get up and touch some grass and touch your friends and
do yoga. Take up meditation.
Focus on your breathing.
I'm being facetious in case anyone didn't know.
Can you tell the difference? I'm so ironic. You can't tell if this is a joke or sincere.
I'm so ironic. I don't even know when I'm being serious.
How do you know if my memes are a joke or not? How can you tell I'm anonymous?
Seize the memes of production.
So is it all a communist plot? Is that what you're saying?
Well, clearly, we need to. Okay, so I kind of semi-subscribe to a very obscure subset of anarchism called anarcho-technocracy, and the idea behind that is that you place as much of the technology as possible in the hands of everybody. So things like decentralized power generation, food production, and information technology.
Technocracy sounds more like a totalitarian thing, though.
Well, technocracy is technically ruled by the knowledgeable, right? The experts.
That's like some Guardian Plato elitism, though. This is like Davos. This is literally going to Davos.
But the idea of anarcho-technocracy is kind of similar to the old goals of the socialist movement, which used to be to educate the poor. Right, and the working class.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of exploitive in a way. You know, if you're educating them, are they like your little pets? Did you want a picture of you and them?
It is kind of condescending, but I think the idea behind it was good, and the idea behind anarcho-technocracy is that you give people the tools so that they can make their own stuff.
Techno-socialism.
Yeah, kind of.
Sure. I mean, that's what the open source movement and all of the free software developers were painting forward, you know.
That's kind of what your idea of sort of scattering to the four winds and all these different communities and sort of moving on the crest of the wave before the new sites can be censored and put under control, you know?
Yeah, the Underground Railroad. You know, different and like with you and your friends and not in the middle of the slave trade. And
I mean, there's been a big re-eruption of things like zine culture, which has been interesting to see. So I think people are building almost like an infranet, if you like.
Nice. Do you have any zines to recommend?
Not offhand. Most of the stuff I know is to do with gaming and so on. So it's quite niche interest.
Zines from like the mid-90s onward and seeing all these different cultural artifacts that I'd collected, and I'd been featured in half of them, and some are just friends online sending me their zines to share their art with me. I have like just so much alternative culture memorabilia from like the mid-90s onward, stacks of zines and magazines and newsletters and just so much.
Are we just being nostalgic, though?
No, I love that stuff. I'm going to start an alternative culture history museum in real life. So the new kids that are on TikTok, they can come and see what alternative culture was like before they were born.
Where are you going to start?
I don't know. It's just an idea that I have because I'm like, oh my God, I have so much of this stuff. I just have piles and piles of these magazines.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm just wondering, it's like teenagers weren't really invented till the 1950s.
Were they a part of the dead internet of the yesteryears?
Yeah.
What was the dead internet before we had the internet? Was that like television or like showbiz moms?
Television was always establishment, right? Because it's the sheer amount of technology and so on
MTV
needed.
Was not establishment. MTV was like the counterculture media taking over. It was a good time.
Yeah, for a while.
It was a good time. And
maybe local radio was kind of...
Local radio was good. College radio. Independent radio. I mean, zine culture. You know, and punk rock and goth and industrial, all these
niche interest magazines. Not even.
They've all been authentic. I was just talking about this. So the real raw culture experiences that we've had are never going to be replicated. And you have all these people online that are in their early 20s now, and the most exciting thing that's ever happened to them is that they saw a meme that they made get featured in an article. They've lived their whole lives on 4chan, you know, fighting against the internet system. You know, they've been trolls their entire life. They haven't gone to raves or concerts.
But isn't that great in and of itself, though?
No. No, people are really jaded and cynical, and they don't have the life experience to be that way. They haven't even been to a orgy of griefs. they haven't been to a goth club. How are they gonna get all up there and be like, you're cringe and I'm based? Like, you're not based if you haven't even been to a fucking concert, you know?
True. I mean, stories.
I'm baffled by the way some people think that they are like so above everything when they have had no life experience outside of online culture. It's disturbing to me.
I just always have this note of caution, wondering whether I'm just being an angry grandpa, you know?
I am. I'm the get off my lawn, but to be fair, I've been online forever, so I have that as a rite of passage, and I shouldn't even be on it anymore. I shouldn't even be having this conversation with you.
Oh, all right, fuck off then.
I gotta get off the internet. I gotta get offline, man. Jack me out of the system, James. I've been sucked into the Matrix. It's dead. What is this? Corpses around me of data.
Oh, she's back on the corpses again.
More like off.
Not to censor you, but you know.
More like off. You know what I mean. So a wrap? Are we wrapping it up?
Yeah. So it's just like so concluding comments then. For me, I think it's true and not true. There's a lot of nonsense out there. A lot of the internet is produced by bots, and probably bots interacting with other bots as well. And even the real people are trying to be fake most of the time. But I think there is a way through, and it might be by
conventions.
Yeah, meet space, zines, smaller communities.
Get out there and start your own zine, become your own superhero, revive the comic hero revolution, oh young one. Do not be fooled by those viral videos. They are only the dead internet, keeping you trapped. Be free, my child.
Yes, you're being controlled by the undead digital hordes. Or we're a couple of old people grumbling. Either of these things could be true, just like the dead internet theory could be true or not.
Old, I'm just a hardcore angel.
I'm not old and wrinkled, I'm ribbed for her pleasure.
My corpse said no!
Okay.
Where it gets really, off record for today.
Right. Well, I think we'll draw things to a close there as we're coming up on an hour. Yes, before things get too out of hand.
James, for hosting this combo.
Oh, you're always welcome, and there will be more from us as and when things permit.
Thank you for tuning in, loyal listeners.
Yes, our loyal listener, who we're sure isn't a bot. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.
Grimm's Tales. Music by Casket Bound.